Welcome to the Careers in Finance series on FinPod by CFI, where we sit down with finance professionals to explore their career journeys. Join us for ideas, insights, and inspiration to help you advance your career in finance.
Welcome to Careers in Finance, and I am so excited to be here today with Carolina Lago. Carolina, thank you for joining us.
Well, thanks, Anna. Thanks for having me.
I've been really excited to chat with you ever since we first connected on LinkedIn because you share such incredible, valuable information around financial modeling. And I think that's first how I came to see you on LinkedIn. And then as I started to just look in a little bit more into your background and your career throughout the different roles that you've had in finance, and then now what you're doing at Tactic, I thought, well, we should really talk about just your career journey and leading up to what you're doing now. So let's go ahead and get started if that sounds good.
Yeah.
Okay. So maybe let's start with how you first came into finance. I always like to ask people, did you study it? Was it intentional? Was it a choice? Or was it an accidental path? Because so many people end up kind of accidentally finding into finance roles. But what about for you?
It was not actually an accident because my bachelor degree was in business, but my favorite subjects in college were all towards finance, cost, accounting itself, and all the corporate finance subjects. That's what I liked to study the most. So I knew I was going to end up in finance at some point. I studied a little bit for 2 years, I guess. My 2 first years were in commercial, like a commercial side of new business analysis. And then I just shifted towards finance already, and I have been in FP&A ever since. But when I first started, it was not called FP&A. It was just planning, financial planning. We didn't used to say a lot of the analysis. It was just financial planning. But that was, I think back then, 20 years ago, nobody talked too much about FP&A itself. So it was more like an evolution, I think, of financial planning as it used to be, just corporate financial planning, the people that did the budget and forecast, to now the professionals that guide the company towards the future, that can look to the back and see what's been going on and compare to how the company is shifting to this future towards the strategy of the company. So it's more like an evolution of these professionals. And I've seen all of that throughout the career, because when I started, it was not even FP&A. It was totally different.
I think that's right, because you see more and more attention being spent on the FP&A role, but I don't remember anybody talking about it really 10 years ago. And now even small startups will, one of their first hires in that finance function and department will be an FP&A role.
Yes,
so it is interesting to see how important it's become. But and I want to talk about that for sure. But going back to some of your first roles, like what was the first role that you had out of college? What was that role like?
The first one was in commercial. I was assisting the salespeople on a company called LG Electronics. You probably know that, for your monitors and TVs and all of that. Back then, they did a lot of cell phones and monitors, and it was the beginning of the LCD monitors. It was the change for the big monitors to the real thin ones and the thin TVs and everything. So all of that was a new business, and they were always searching for new technologies, bringing new technologies from Korea to implement in Brazil. So I was in the commercial, doing that analysis for the commercial team, working together with the salespeople, actually, but as an analyst. So I was in the office. I was not going out as a salesperson, but I was like going through all of this new business, and it was great to see that. And I was always pushing that a little bit to finance, but finance was not my role, actually. It was new business analyst. So that's when I started I already had in college all those finance subjects that I liked so much to study, but I didn't work directly with a finance manager, with a finance team. Then I moved it. That was just a year and a half of my career. And then I moved as a finance analyst in what I call FP&A, but it was actually finance planning. So there you go.
And this is an interesting, I'm glad that you mentioned this first role wasn't really sitting in the finance team, because I think sometimes people don't realize how many paths into finance there can be.
Exactly. And it's very
with
important.
An analyst role. Not sitting in finance can be actually a great way to understand business that helps you then when you start to roll into like the finance function inside of an organization, right?
Exactly. Yeah. I believe so. I believe this was a great first step for me. It shaped me a lot into knowing what a company like a manufacturing company actually was doing. And because my first role in finance was a service company. And I've been doing more on the service side of the businesses. Most of my career is in service instead of manufacturing. But this first step into business, actually being on a manufacturing company and being on sales, you can actually see how business develop. So it was great to have that experience before even stepping into finance.
Love that. I love that, because I do think people need to kind of keep their paths open and realize that there are many paths into that finance role. So you did that first analyst role with the sales team for about 1.5 years. And then what was your first role after that you said you went into a finance function?
Yes. That was on a financial service company, a company that processed credit cards. It was actually on that time, it processed all MasterCard transactions in Brazil. It was just 2 companies doing all the acquiring and processing of credit card transactions. One for Visa and the other one for MasterCard and diners. So it was a huge amount of transactions on a small, I would say not a small, but a medium size in terms of number of employees. So it was very good to have that team. It was like 30 people, probably 40 people in finance together with accounting and planning. Altogether was about 40, maybe mostly 50 people. But it was great to have that interaction. Everybody was working together and it was really easy to talk to everybody. It was not like those huge silos where you have FP&A on one side and accounting on the other side and all the business on the others. No, everybody was working together towards one single goal. And I had amazing job opportunities there. I got to participate on the side because I was planning. But I got to participate on the IPO of the company, which was for me on the beginning of the career was amazing because I could see this view of a new public company being born and creating an investor relations department, being able to help them craft the reports and the financial analysis that was needed to show to the market what the company was. It was amazing. And it was a very successful IPO. It raised, I think it was around $2 billion. So it was huge, historical, huge. So it was great to participate on that. And I had other opportunities along with this first company that it's unbeatable. It's just for somebody that is on beginning of the career, it was unbeatable, the opportunities that I had. I could implement a planning software, which was, I think, the best part of my stay there, of my job there. I learned so much with that. I got to do a zero-based budget, which was amazing to learn about the company from the ground up, zero everything. Let's see what you do. Is this really necessary? So I went to a bunch of meetings with my boss, like to learn about all of those processes in the company. What are really necessary? Let's just bring to zero and let's just build that again. So this was amazing opportunities I had on this first job. And I think it shaped a lot of what my professional career went on to be after that. It was great.
What an incredible opportunity, because it sounds like to me you hit so many things there. And I'm sure it was just a fraction of all the things you got exposed to that really make you so well-rounded, right? Like going through an IPO, incredible experience. Something I always say to people, both in finance and out of finance, something I say is, if in your career, early in your career, you can go through either something like an IPO experience or even something like a merger and acquisition.
Yes.
It is, you don't realize it at the time, but it's like getting a whole other business degree. The things you get exposed to, I think you don't even sometimes realize all the things you're learning and processing until you're out on the other side of it. But what an incredible experience. And then you got to stand up some new systems, which is a really important part of now FP&A roles in particular, these new systems that you might have to implement. And then the zero-based budget, which can be such a clarifying experience, right?
Yes. It's like learning the process, actually.
Exactly, from the ground up. Well, and maybe some of our listeners don't know what a zero-based budget is. So how would you describe it to somebody that didn't know what a zero-based budget was?
Okay, so usually I don't know how much everybody is used to budgets itself, but with the budget process, usually you just grab whatever you had last year and you grow a little bit and you keep your budget line, or maybe you have top-down metrics to follow. That's how usually people build budgets. I know you should be calculating the budget all over every year, but that's not everybody. That's not exactly what everybody does. So what we usually do is we keep going with the budget. We're not going to lose our budget. We just keep growing it, or maybe maintain it, or just keeping what the management is telling us. With the zero-based budget, we just zero everything. And it's like we're building the company from zero. We want to know every process. Why do you do it? We want to understand if we go up from zero, it doesn't matter how much budget you had last year, how much do you need now to keep processing, and if the processes are really necessary, what can be cut. And it's not about just cutting from the budget, but it's cutting processes that are not needed, and going back to the core of the business and see if we are actually doing what we're supposed to do. So it's like we're building the company from zero again, even though we already have it. And of course, we do comparisons with the budgets that we would have if we were just going like business as usual. But we do try to recalculate and understand what everybody does. So we have meetings. The process back then was meetings with everybody. So we schedule meetings back to back. It was like probably 1 or 2 months with meetings back to back with the consultants and me, my boss, and the team that was involved in this in the zero-based budget, and the teams of the operations. Like we had a meeting with the marketing team. So it was not just how much of the sales are we going to spend this year. No, why we are doing this in this campaign. Why do we need that? How much does it cost? What if we don't do it? What is the losses that we have? So for sales, for example, it was a little sad that we end up losing half of the teams in sales because it was not necessary for the new strategy that we were heading to. But then we had to recalculate, why do we need all those people? Are they in the office? Do they need office? Do they need office space if they're staying in the street all the time? So that was something else that we did. We cut the office space and we gave it back one full floor of the company because we didn't need actually all the office space to the sales team. And we changed a little bit the way the sales team were located. They had a right to have a hotel chair. And that was very new back then because everybody we were not talking about COVID time. We talked 2010. So it's not useful nobody was used to have this hotel desks back then. It was a very new concept. But the sales team were like, you're going to be on the street. You don't need a desk full time. So we're going to give one full floor, and then we just have half of the space for the sales team, and they're going to stay there for a while, and then they're going to stay on the street the rest of the day. So that was the type of decisions that we had to make with the budget. So we cut it where we had to cut, but we needed to understand first how the process are done and why do we need those expenses, and if they are really necessary to achieve the company's strategy. So that's basically what the zero budget is.
That was a great explanation. And there's oftentimes they are used for looking for cost savings and things like that. But it's interesting. I work a lot with small and mid-sized startups, tech startups, And there usually is a time when a company's gone through a growth period that the founder or the CEO starts to feel like they don't understand the business anymore, or things feel less efficient, or there's less velocity than there used to be. And one of the things I recommend is to go through a process similar to a zero-based budget. Go through the zero-based budgeting process, and through that, the executive team and the leader learns about what are people actually doing now, right? They understand the business better, and it can be so clarifying. And you can find these things like that we're doing that we don't need to be doing, or we shouldn't be doing. And how does the work of everybody align to the strategy? So there's so many ways that going through that process can be helpful. Let alone the budget savings on top of that usually comes out of it.
It goes a little back to the transformation projects too. Even big companies, when they go through a transformation, it's sort of like the zero-based budget, but they just do a step back and see if they are spending actually the resources where they need to be spending. Because especially on large corporations, I went through a transformation too after on another job, a bigger company, that we found out that most of the people were doing things just to be busy. So there were a lot of busy work that was not connected, and it's not their fault. It's just lack of probably management. Probably they were just doing what they're told to do. So there are a lot of projects that they had no sense with the strategy. There's no meaning for it to exist. And we see that it's a lot of busy work, and it's not connected to what the company really needs to be doing to achieve the best results. So that's a little bit of the transformation projects are too.
Yeah, and you've hit on something. I think actually there's this kernel here of, so often people don't realize how strategic the finance function is. And, thinking about your role coming up in finance and having exposure to so much, and, having such an incredible career, finance is not just about the numbers. It's about understanding the business strategy and helping people connect their initiatives and what they're doing to that business strategy. And it's such a strategic function inside the business. And I think sometimes people don't realize that. Yeah,
I think that's the evolution of FP&A. What I see is less than just creating budgets, and more looking into the strategy and trying to guide the company towards that strategy. It's a new function of FP&A. The evolution.
Exactly. So you were at this company, you had exposure to an incredible, just diverse, wide swath of types of projects, went through an incredible IPO. What did you do after that company? What were your next roles after that?
I spent a small amount of time, maybe a year and a half, on a company that is an American company. And I was responsible to consolidate the Latin America FP&A. Now my role was already FP&A, was already officially called FP&A. That was 10 years ago, 15 years ago. And I spent, I think, 1 year and a half there. And my role was to do the FP&A for the whole P&L, I would say, but for different countries in Latin America, and report that to United States. So I spent a year and a half there, and then I moved to US. It was not a long time because I had to move to US with my husband, and that's where I spent the most of my time at the last company that I was, more than 10 years. So that's where I stand now. Not anymore, but less.
Yeah, you've lived so many places, which has got to help make you just a really inform your view too of your role in finance, and just being, because culturally and different countries have, different norms and processes. So it just really makes you so much more, broad in terms of your vantage point and how you sit and look at things, I'm sure.
Yeah, I can say that the culture, the differences of culture really help shaping my career, I think. And I think starting in Brazil was a great point, because people in Brazil, they really value the experience over the higher education first. So they go out of college straight to the market, to jobs, and they do so much with these jobs, like I did on the beginning of my career. They're exposed to so much, and also the challenges of the country itself, which is always like high inflation and a lot of macroeconomical problems. So you have to really be tough to try to understand all of this and position the company in a worldwide market, because usually at least the companies that I work for were like towards the world, were like global companies in Brazil. So it was really nice for me I was really lucky, I would say, to start my career in Brazil, because it really, how can I say, it really, the position of the experience is more important. It's not that it's more important, but probably the education is not so pursued on the beginning of the career as it is in the US and probably in other countries. So I saw in the US, it was a little bit different. People go out of college straight to a grad school. And I believe I like better the way I did. I don't advise people to follow just what I do, but I like better the way I did, because I got experience, and then I did my master's degree. So I already had that experience to apply and to understand better. So a lot of things that I went through during my master's degree, I had already done in college, but I didn't have the experience. So it's a little different when you do that after so much experience. You have another type of learning, another type of absorption of that knowledge. It's different. You can apply right away. It's different from the beginning of the career, when people didn't have any experience and jump right away on a master's degree, even a doctorate degree.
Right.
So,
it's true. So I want to come back in a minute and talk about tactic and what you're doing there, but you've talked about learning. So let's actually use this as a moment to just chat a bit about your ongoing approach to learning, because you are somebody that I know to be a lifelong learner, and you have so much experience, and you are sharing that experience and teaching too, but also remain a lifelong learner. So let's actually spend a few minutes about that, because when I first met you on LinkedIn, I didn't know that you were a CFI member and we're pursuing your FMVA, which was fun to find out when we connected. So that was great.
Yes.
And somebody so experienced, but you still care about your skills and developing them. And then recently you got an FMI designation, which is incredible, not easy to do, I know.
Yeah.
So share a little bit about your philosophy and your approach to continuing to develop yourself, even while you share your knowledge to help others develop themselves.
Yeah. So I have a problem with learning. I am addicted to it. So it's really a problem. I buy more courses than I should, and I'm always doing like 3 or 4 at the same time, just for the fun of doing it. I really like to do them. So when along my career, I kept doing this, but not searching for any designation for it. So I didn't do so much of formal education, like with titles and things like that during my career. I always did. If I needed to apply something, I would go and learn it and apply it, and just learn informally and never even care about the designations or anything like that. I never even heard about the FMI and the FMVA until I stopped being on that bubble that I was in the corporate world. I was not participating so much out there. So when I first heard about those two, I thought to myself, I really need to try this. I need to put my skills to test. It was more for the fun and for the challenging myself than for the designation itself. But I really, really recommend not only the process for both of the designations, but also to prove your skills to the market. It's great to have that and to be able to prove that you actually can do, because those two, both the FMI and the FMVA, those two are very credible designations that if you manage to get them, they're very different from each other. That's why I always tell everybody, do both if you can. They're very different from each other. The FMI will test you for time and for one skill only. CFI and the FMVA will will teach you actually so many skills. And that's why I didn't finish my FMVA. I'm not in a hurry. I keep getting distracted with a few courses that I find interesting and stopping one in the middle and going back. And sometimes I do the whole course and I leave the test for later, and then I don't get the certificate yet. So I have a few that is, they are set on the side for me to do the test. But I'll get there. By the end of the year, I'll get there. I'll probably have to renew because I don't think 1 year is enough. 1 year is not enough to see everything that I want to see in there. Maybe if you go and rush and do everything real quick, you can do all the certifications in 1 year if you want to. But I don't advise to. Right? Take your time, get a few years on it, because it's a lot of great content. Right now, I'm lost into the Power BI, so it has nothing to do with FMVA. So I'm like, one thing that I always challenged me in the Power BI was doing the P&L in the Power BI. And CFI has a great course. I just finished that one last week. And it's amazing what I can do now. And now I can put my models on Power BI too. Before I used to put on Excel, create a data set and import to Power BI. Now I can build the models in Power BI, which is awesome. So it's a vast world of learning in CFI that it's not enough. 1 year is not enough. So that's why I'm taking my time on it. But I really recommend to everybody to do it.
I'm glad that's been your experience. You sound like you learn like I do. I start the course. So I kind of have a bunch of courses halfway started because I get so excited, and then I get into another one, and then I come back and finish it. So I love you. I think the first time we chatted, you said it's like I use it kind of like Netflix, and a lot of our users do. So it was here.
That's my Netflix. Exactly. That's exactly the way.
Yeah, but I love more than anything that you are a lifelong learner. You're addicted to it, like you said, but yet you are using all of your knowledge and your incredible career to teach others and help others. So let's talk a little bit about what you're doing with Tactic and some of the courses that you're doing and teaching and everything.
Yeah, with Tactic, I actually had to become digital nomad for circumstances, because my husband kept moving to other countries, and as soon as I get established, he needs to move again. So now I'm in France, and we're getting ready to move again to another country. So when I finally learned French, and now I'm able to work in France, now he's moving again. So I said, no, you know what? Let me open a company and let me just work towards this so I can actually build something on my own instead of just working on the corporate world. So I create Tactic with the intent of helping small and medium business to have this excellence of FP&A that corporate big corporations have access to, without the barrier of the price, probably, because it's much less, it's a fraction of the cost of having a full team of FP&A, and having access to world-class analysis and strategy and actually how to understand your numbers, how to guide your company towards success. So that was the basic intent of Tactic, was to do this help to companies. But then again, I had to educate the teams, the finance teams, to become FP&A when they were just finance or accounting or whatever they were. So I started to create this process for them, and then started doing corporate training for them. And then I thought, this is the best part. This is what I like most, is the corporate training too. So I'm still doing the FP&A for companies and creating processes for them. But at the same time, I'm concentrating a lot on creating the content for the corporate training and making the teams get better with that. And I decided to open for the public too. So last month, I opened a course for a small group of people. It was a live course. And it was great because we had people, different levels of the company, even people that were not finance yet, to learn about financial modeling. And that's the subject that I'm most passionate about, because I believe that this is the skill that all finance professionals need to learn as soon as possible. And I know there's a lot of people that say, we don't need to build a 3-statement model because my company has the software and that's not a skill that I'm ever going to use in a company. But I always advise this as a skill for people to learn for themselves, to learn to start to build business acumen. So when you start to build financial models from scratch, you start to build them in your head. So it's something that becomes natural to you. It's a language that becomes natural to you. Actually, speaking of language, I usually say finance is the language of business and accounting is the grammar. So if we see it that way, I don't know if anybody said that before, but I didn't read it anywhere. And I tried to find that quote and I can't believe I'm being creative like that. But yeah, I came up with that. And I think it makes totally sense for me. And the financial model helps you learn accounting on a spreadsheet instead of being on the books trying to learn accounting rules. So that's what that's what moves me to teach financial modeling as a skill for professionals. And that was great for having on the course as my first course for the public, because I had people from all over the companies and different types of companies, different levels of the companies, and even people there's not finance. So it was great for that.
That's awesome. I love to hear it. And so this was great. Thank you for doing this and joining us to share a bit about your career. I'm going to ask you one question before we go, but I have to tell everybody, I highly recommend to follow Carolina on LinkedIn.
Thanks.
She shares such great information and she's so generous with her knowledge. And so I highly recommend it. I always follow and love the content that you share. So thank you for being so generous with your knowledge and your insights. So
Thanks,
my last
Anna.
question is, what advice would you give to somebody who wants to have a career like you did and somebody who's just starting out? What kind of advice would you give them?
Well, I think the biggest advice that I can get is don't wait for opportunities. You can create your own opportunity. You can go after, if you want to learn something, go after, try to learn, and then try to implement and be the person in a company that comes with new ideas and new insights. Even if nobody's talking about, you can bring things, even if it's not fully supported right away. Spend some time learning and bring a full solution and try to bring that to management. That's how you create opportunities for yourself. I see a lot of bright people that keeps waiting for their manager to tell them what to do and to put them on a job, while they can be doing that already. So I see people in accounting, for example, that really wants to be FP&A. So if you really want to be FP&A, just get together with somebody, partner with somebody from FP&A team. If you don't have an FP&A team, try to do some analysis, try to bring some insights instead of just reporting numbers. Bring that idea, speak up. I think it's the best way for you to start doing what you want to do and start being known to be able to do that stuff that you want to do. So that's how you learn. You bring opportunities to yourself. Don't wait for them.
Incredible advice that I think every young and starting professional should listen to. Because a couple of things there that really apply to any role. One is bring solutions and bring ideas. And even if those ideas or solutions don't get adopted or they don't, don't take off, you start to become known as a person who's thinking about solutions and thinking about improving the business. And that's great. And I think the other thing you said that I share with so many people that ask me for career advice or insights, do the things that excite you. Like a lot of people wait for promotions, like you mentioned, or wait to be moved into a new role. But if you start to, while still doing your own responsibilities, start to do the things that a lot of times people get promotions because they're already doing that job. That's what we have to do, right? We have to take the initiative. So I love that advice. That was fantastic. Carolina, thank you for sharing your background and your story, your career story. We appreciate you very much. Thanks for coming on today.
Thank you so much. And it was a real pleasure to talk to you.
Thanks for joining us today. We hope you enjoyed the conversation. FinPod is brought to you by Corporate Finance Institute, the #1 rated online provider of finance and banking training, certifications, and productivity tools.